Celtic Ligers, Celtic Ligers, Celtic Ligers, Celtic Ligers, Celtic Ligers, Celtic.
All right, hello. But yeah, sorry, I was saying that David Duchovny had, like, I believe, I'm open to correction, he had a sex addiction that they wrote into X-Files as a result. And so Mulder had kind of these, like, it was always like he would be entering into porno theaters and stuff like that, you know? Yeah. And he would be, you know, doing dubious stuff. Like every time Scully would be like, Mulder, where are you? Why can't you be here? Then he'd be like, I'm visiting my sister or something. Not his sister, but because she got abducted by aliens. But he would be visiting somebody, and then they would like have him walking into a porno theater or cranking on some video or whatever. It was weird. But then there was one where it's like, he never sounded suspicious necessarily when he was on the phone with her, but then there was one and he was kind of like, I'm doing something, it was clear it was something embarrassing and shameful that he didn't want to admit, you know? Because she's like, where are you? And he's like, I'm visiting my parents or something.
Yeah, sounds suspicious.
Like, all right. And then they pull out of the camera and he's in Graceland visiting like Elvis's house. Right. And he's just like really excited and he's doing like karate moves around the place.
Really?
Yeah, it's a funny show.
The King.
Yeah. Because he's obsessed with aliens, so that's why he would be obsessed with Elvis.
That's true. Do you remember that point in life where they realised that even if Elvis wasn't dead, he'd be dead by that stage?
No.
Like,
no, I did not.
Look up when Elvis was born. Please.
Elvis Presley Wikipedia. Okay.
Right.
He was born in 1935.
I guess he could still be alive.
He could still be alive.
Just
about.
Just clinging on.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah. Well, I was going to say he'd be dead by now, but he might end actually. Prince Philip lived to be 99.
112.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
310.
He lived to be 300 years old.
Prince
I love
Philip.
it. You said before, you were like, oh, they're not really doing much for this Prince Philip thing. You said that on a previous podcast.
Yeah, the last one.
And I would like you to retract that now.
I still haven't seen anything.
You're insane. You're literally insane. What are you talking about?
The only thing I've seen is that he converted a car into a hearse before he died.
Okay. Have you heard the BBC has received 109,741 complaints over the coverage of Prince Philip?
Yeah, but that's the BBC. Like, people complain as a hobby.
No, that's the most that has ever been received.
Like, when people put on a condom ad, people complain that the condom's not big enough, you know?
Yeah, that's what they're complaining about. It's like, it's so unrealistic.
Yeah, it's too small.
It's too small. That's why I'm annoyed. I'm presuming that's why everybody else is annoyed.
I remember when I first saw the like condom thing when I was very young, and I didn't realize it unfurled.
Okay.
I thought it just sort of sat like a hat. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I was like, if it wasn't for Daniel Radcliffe and extras just unfurling that thing, then I probably would never have found that out.
Yeah, I think it was. I saw someone put it on a banana,
a little beanie.
Like, yeah, and I was like, I wonder. I wonder how it catches the calm.
Yeah, it'll be like
being perfectly frank.
Just putting it down and just being like, "You're gonna break it."
Yeah,
if you just
you're gonna snap it.
You need to wear it like a little hat, you know.
And then you hear about female condoms and the whole thing. Just
can't even get into that. Let's just.
Dental dams is another thing.
Yeah. I'm thinking of I had a joke earlier today that I was going to introduce the podcast.
Amazing.
And
pre-written material.
Completely forgotten what it was. Sometimes I think about like joke titles to introduce the podcast with.
Yeah.
And then by the time we start recording, I've immediately forgotten them.
Right.
So let me think what it was.
Okay. Was it anything to do with anything I said?
No, not really.
No,
I'll be honest with you.
Well, then I'm not really much use here.
Welcome to JAQ, the podcast where we're just asking questions.
Yeah. What does that mean?
I don't know. kind of like
they call it jacking off.
Yeah,
JAQ.
You told me that on the podcast, and I thought it was very funny.
Yeah, and then you turned it into a joke.
I recycled it. I turned it in a year later. Probably like a few months. Let's give it a few months, okay?
Here's one.
Mm-hmm.
No. I'll tell you what I did do.
All right.
I didn't come up with a joke, but I'll tell you what I did do.
What?
I watched, and you know how I hate watching things, but for the podcast, I watched Reeling in the Years, episode 1.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah. Do you want to, before we get to the current news, will I quickly run you through some of the stuff that came up?
Yeah. Can I say about Reeling in the Years? I thought it was a kind of ironic thing that people enjoyed. Like, oh yeah, it's funny to look at their like clothes and stuff. And sometimes it's on when they have a place in the, in the slot that they just need to fill. It's so, like when you have like 101 of the best
it's really
British
good.
Comedy moments.
Yeah, no, it's genuinely very good.
Is it?
It's like, people say this and it's true. It's probably the best thing that RT's ever made. And like, it's crazy that RT let it happen because RT are so restrictive, but they just said like, have at the archives. We don't care that there's no narrator, and like you can use any music you like.
Yeah,
so
you don't have any obnoxious kind of fucking Owen McDermott type person who just kind of is like, and don't we all remember when the fucking Italian 90?
Yeah. So you just
on me head.
What?
On me head.
What does that mean?
Just means on your head, like in football.
Oh yeah.
Clearly, somebody's never played the beautiful game.
Yeah. No.
Okay.
I want to know, one end of a football from the other. Is that what they say?
They do say that.
No, I say that now about me.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll start with the start.
Okay.
I'll do it quickly. Don't worry.
No, I'd like to hear. I mean, I might watch it. No spoilers. No, but go on. No, I'm joking. Go ahead.
First was so it was 2011.
Mm-hmm.
So cast your mind back.
Mm-hmm.
There was the big snow. Remember that?
I do remember that. I had tonsillitis around that time.
I always liked the way people called it the big snow because you have, the big wind, which happened in like the early 1800s. There was a hurricane that hit the west coast, and then you had the Great Hunger.
Mm-hmm. Do you actually call it that? I don't think people call it that.
Well, in Irish, it's Ochras Mór.
Yeah, I hate when people refer to the famine as the Great Hunger.
Yeah, but then
if you called it Ochras Mór, I would actually be like, all right, I gotta begrudgingly give it that. But if it's like the Great Hunger, you're like, shut the fuck. Something about it.
Be quiet. Yeah, exactly. It's too lyrical.
Yes, yeah. I don't know what it is. Yeah.
It's the sort of thing that guy we were talking about would say. The guy trying to get into Ireland from France. What was his name? You remember him?
Oh yeah, the fucking the traveling comedian guy.
Yeah, the storyteller.
The storyteller.
He'd be like, "I'm from Ireland, the land of the Great Hunger."
Yeah. What did you say one time? I can't remember what it was. You were talking about like. Oh, I'm sorry about that. This is already on the podcast. So it's not even worth going over again. But you were talking about people who like poetry.
Yeah.
I can't remember. Forget it. I'm very sorry, everybody. What a waste of a great... Listen, go back to like episode 3 or something of this podcast and hear James talk about people who like poetry and remind me what he was referring to.
Yeah, email Gareth.
At CelticLigers@gmail.com.
Yeah. Okay.
Anyway, sorry, go on. Big snow, okay.
David Cameron's government.
Okay.
Who
Interesting, because he's back in the news now.
Is he? About what?
Have you not been following this big scandal over in the UK?
No.
Oh, okay. I'll write it in the things to mention then.
Well, just quickly say it.
All right. He works for a lobbying group, and it's been discovered that he was very like, you know, the way people, you presume that they're using their government connections to get big money or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, he's like just did it in such a typical Cameron boneheaded way that like he's managed to implicate a bunch of Tory, you know, fucking cabinet ministers and all this stuff. Just literally phoning up Rishi Sunak, being like, can I get some of that money if it's going, you know, for my company? And they're just like, who's this? I don't have this number. So don't ring me at my home again.
I don't know anything about David Cameron, really. What's the reason for Brexit?
He's just a dope. He's just like incredibly clueless posh. I mean, the pig dick, his dick and a pig, that thing, we know that as well.
I know someone asked him, why did he go into politics? He said, because I'm good at it. And then, like...
What the fuck does that even mean?
Exactly. And then he was the government that started bringing in, like, serious austerity.
Yeah, and it was famous, wasn't it, that they had a coalition with the Lib Dems? Who famously said that they would... one of their main things was student fees and how they wouldn't raise them. And then it led to a kind of pretty much a big scale protest in about... so there was 2000? No, that was 2010. That might happen later. No, it was 2010, I think.
Could this be 2010?
It's very possible.
Yes, it's not 2011, it's 2010.
Yes, thank you. Okay. Yeah, because I was like... That didn't make sense for me with the big snow as well, which is so weird because I was like, I had tonsillitis that year, and I was like, but I had that when I was like 19 going on 20.
Yeah.
And I was like, that would have made it 2010.
Going on 20, you know that stuff?
No?
Yeah, but we had two big snows. Remember the first year they were like, we don't have the machinery, and then people were like, okay, now it's happened. Shouldn't you invest in like road clearing technology? They were like, it's never going to happen again. Then it happened. It is amazing. 2 more years.
The Irish government has like famously has done that for basically my entire life, as in like just massive failings being shown in the system, and then I was like, whew, well, glad that's over. It happens again. And it's just like, why are you like this? Why are you like this?
They're gonna do it for the COVID, and then like everyone who's anyone is like, this will happen again, and you just know that they're not gonna do anything.
Yeah, no, because everyone's saying that now, but like they also have like reporters and journalists. Do they believe their own bullshit, or are they just making cover or whatever? I'm not sure, but literally everybody's going, we really want to avoid another lockdown, and the way that we do that is by these reasons. And they go, okay, well, we'll take that under advisement, but you don't know what it's like to have people whose jobs depend on your decisions. And it's like, so we're going to continue to go in and out of sporadic lockdown, cause untold devastation to the lives of these people. And actually it's you who's wrong for suggesting, can we not do this again, please?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Moving swiftly on.
The next thing, this one was like such a weird one. It was Amy Huberman's wedding.
That is weird.
And like, I know RT are obsessed with making Amy Huberman a star.
Yeah.
And I was wondering, was this just part of the PSYOP where they're like, do you remember austerity?
Yeah.
Well, that was almost as big as Amy Huberman's wedding.
Huberman's wedding. The thing is, I've actually met Amy Huberman, and I've heard a bunch of stories about her, and she was also like in a pretty good comedy show, I believe. You know that sketch show, Your Bad Self, which Donald Gleason was in?
No.
A lot of people seem to like it. There's some sketches that are pretty, but basically when I met her as well, she was like, this is actually quite funny. I met her because she was in Can't Cope, Won't Cope, and I animated the intro to Can't Cope, Won't Cope. So I was at the premiere for it, and Stephanie Preisner was there along with Amy Huberman. And Stephanie Preisner was like, couldn't give a fuck about me or anything. You know, not that I expected her to, you know?
Yeah.
And she was probably very nervous because of the reception. But like every single other actor who was there, including Amy Huberman, was all like, oh, that's great. You did the intro. That was nice. I liked the intro.
Yeah.
And Stephanie Preisner was just like furiously smoking outside, like just not looking at anybody. But anyway, Amy Huberman was like really lovely. So I don't know. I mean, there are worse people to turn into celebrities, but I am in agreement. I'm just kind of like, what is it about this person that you like? You know,
that's it. Like, she's not a bad person, but she's not like what other person where they're like, okay, we tried to make a comedian, let's try to make her, give her a drama.
I think that about Craig Doyle. Except they didn't get to the drama part. Do you remember when they tried to make Craig Doyle into something?
But that's just the thing. It's like normally they give them one shot. They're like, we'll try to make you a comedian. Whereas with her, they're just like...
Well, actually, they gave Craig Doyle, I believe, like 2 or 3 different chat shows, and none of them took.
Why don't they give her a chat show?
They should give her a chat show.
Like if she's nice, that's all you need. You just need to be nice. You need to be nice or you need to be cruel. But
I mean, you don't give her... I mean, you can probably stop giving her stuff. You know, we're saying here, like, we should give her a chat show. Like, no, she's had enough. You can move your little nose out of the trough and let somebody else squeeze in there.
Yeah. And they also said, like, Amy Huberman got married to her husband, Brian O'Driscoll.
Brian O'Driscoll, yeah.
Which I thought was funny. I felt like that was another thing where they were like, she's much more famous than her husband.
Yeah. Maybe that the whole thing was like a Posh and Bex type scenario where they thought they could be like a celebrity couple. Do you know?
Yeah, but the way it was framed on Unreal in the years. Because I remember it was very much, at the time, it was like Brian O'Driscoll's wedding.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, no, retroactive. I mean, the other thing about it, you were saying like, oh, was this big? Did anybody care? And I was like, I was so not engaged. I was in college and we had a TV just at the cusp of when they stopped doing like terrestrial broadcasting, I believe.
They're like analog broadcasting.
Or do you know where you could get an antenna and you could get the TV? Yeah. So I basically I remember a few months like I was talking about politics or something. Because I wasn't interested in politics. I was just talking about it with my dad, and then I was like, I referenced Brian Cowan, and he's like, you know, he hasn't been the Taoiseach now for like 6 months.
Yeah.
So I didn't even realize that the Taoiseach had changed, you know. So I'm not sure if I'd be able to say what people were talking about at that time. Were they talking about Amy Huberman? You know, because I'm not even sure.
Well, they weren't.
Yeah.
I don't believe they were.
No.
Personally?
Yeah.
Next thing.
I just thought about it. And if you have a problem with that, email us in and then just give your email address. Yeah. For some reason, it's like, email Gareth at CelticLigers@gmail.com. And to email James, email him at just your real email address.
Send him a letter. Rubber Bandits, Horse Outside.
Yeah, that's pretty pivotal, I think.
Yeah, that was back when, like, they had a sense of who they were. And, like, Blind Boy didn't think that he was, you know, the next guy.
Do you know what I like? Because I'm confused. I'm gonna like, because I liked when they were like that to an extent. I mean, I didn't really get the Horse Outside stuff, but the other stuff where they were kind of like a silly group doing gags, I thought that was really funny. Like the shows that they had ended up having for Channel 4 and stuff. But like, this just came to mind now because you're right. He takes it upon himself to be this kind of a bit of an intellectual now, you know, and the other guy doesn't. Like sometimes they upload a video to the YouTube and it's like, if that guy's been doing it, it's like hilarious and brilliant. And then if he's doing it, it's like just kind of a little cringy to me. But anyway, I just wanted to say this really quick, sorry, but I was like reading an article. I don't know why I do this myself, but you see articles about co-living shared on Twitter, and then you just scroll down through the replies just to see the worst people in the fucking world, okay?
Yeah.
And somebody had commented underneath it. Basically, the idea was like, somebody's going, who the fuck would want to live in this co-living space?
Yeah.
You know? And somebody's like, Blind Boy actually did a really good podcast about the type of people who want to live in these places and how they're becoming more common, and they do exist. And I was like, link that fucking podcast, because I would love to know, like, because I could imagine it so clearly how he'd make some sort of like his kind of spiritual guru, intellectual type point for why people would, you know, enjoy living this way and how it's something that. But I also cannot picture him condoning co-living in any way, shape, or form.
No. Like, my theory in co-living is that if you are a young professional who has to work in another country for a short amount of time,
Yeah.
you might want to live in co-living. But that's
yeah.
but that's an incredibly small group of people. Like,
No, you don't cater your entire rental market around these people.
Exactly. So, like,
And then,
within a functioning housing market, they are a small section. Well, you don't build them during the housing crisis, you know, because it's just a waste.
I don't
of
even
time.
like, because I saw the space and it was like, I made fun of it on Twitter because it was really stupid, but because it's an absolute shoebox. It's really like vile. But, and then there's a bit that one of the part was like work/social. So there's like, here's your little section where you can work and chill out, you know, when you're not working. And just, it was like giving you palpitations in the era of COVID where you're like, unbelievable. They do expect us to live this way, don't they? This is what they want. They want us to be like, if they could, you know, have us be like people living in, you know, the way in the business, the Japanese businessmen who sleep in the fucking, you know, drawers. It's like, they'd have us be that way.
From the documentary Seinfeld, where the Japanese...
No, that was a well-documented thing back in the day. Seinfeld was referencing like a real phenomenon. I don't know if it's still going on. Yeah, like I don't know if it's still happening, but that was something that was happening.
They slept in drawers of Chesterfield.
They weren't actual drawers, but they were comparable to drawers because they were literally... That's why the joke was he saw how they were sleeping, because that was the thing at the time, is in like Japan was like this complete nation of like workaholics who just are like, everything was just like, just find me a place, I'll lie down in it until I have to work again.
Yeah.
But anyway, it might be a negative stereotype, but I mean, I did see it before Seinfeld, you know.
Right.
So, but anyhow, having said that, I saw that layout and I was kind of like, it's actually bigger than the place that I'm living in right now. And I was like, I could do that. And then, but like in this room, and I don't mind telling y'all, I'm paying €250 to sleep in this thing. If you were to do it in co-living, it would be like, it's going to like 1,250 a month to live in this thing. And you're just like, that, like, if you told me
in the current housing market, it's going to turn into tenement living. Like,
yeah, it just is.
You can't have 10,000 people on the streets in the country and then build these single person rooms and expect them to work like they would in a place where people aren't on the street. You know, like, you're just going to get groups of people moving in. Like, that's just going to be how it works, and it's just going to be horrible.
Do you think they'll actually have people? I mean, fuck, you're right.
100%. Like, think about it. You're
unbelievable.
You currently have it. People coming in to work, and they say work on the fishing boats.
Yeah.
And or some other, I don't know how fishing boats work, but they do shift work. And then they split the bed with someone else, you know? So, like, they get the room for half the day, and then the other person gets half the day while they're working. Like, that's going to be how these work.
That's it. Yeah.
Or, like, if you're a couple, why wouldn't you move in together? Or, like, if you are homeless, why wouldn't you move your family into it? Like, that is just going to be how it's going to be. And why would the guy who's renting them care if more than one person's living there?
Yeah, he
wouldn't
doesn't
bother
give a
them.
shit.
Like,
yeah.
So like, it's just hideous to be building these like extremely, I don't know, particular buildings in the current market. You know? Yeah.
And we'll get to it later, but the particular one in Phibsborough that's just been given planning permission is quite disgusting to me. But,
yeah.
But anyway, go on to we're on Rubber Bandit's horse outside. What's the next thing?
The Greek bailout and the introduction of austerity there.
What type of ironic song did they play over that? You know, the way that whenever it comes to like the news, it's like, you know, it'll be like fucking something Greek. I'm trying to think of like with money, like other like.
No,
I think it's usually from the era, so that's why I'm having difficulty of thinking something from 2010.
See,
that was like about money.
I didn't know any of the music at all.
Yeah,
I don't know, but it didn't seem overly ironic.
Okay.
It was sort of like some rock song, so it felt like there was an energy, but not like a joviality.
Yeah, it's kind of like Adam Curtis documentaries, aren't they? Without his narration.
Adam Curtis is just Joe Rogan for people who use Twitter, you know?
I don't know about that.
Definitely is. Like, I think Nick Mullen on Calm Down was talking about how Joe Rogan, his whole thing is like, that's interesting. Like, what would happen if people drove backwards? Oh, that's interesting to think about, you know? Or what happened if monkeys evolved because of, like, magical mushrooms? It's like,
yeah,
that's interesting. And then, like, Adam Curtis is just like, what would happen if a society valued the individual over the collective? Oh, that's interesting.
Okay, that's interesting. That's funny.
About, you know?
No, you're right. Like, I mean, there's some of the stuff that he was doing back in the day where he's talking about the history of advertising or the history of, like, the Gulf War and stuff like this and things like that. But in the era after hypernormalization, it's like, you've gone too far for me. I can't. Like, what you're doing here is making connections that it's almost like advocating for, imagine if everybody just became a different person, and it's easy if you try, except also here is a list of people who you didn't know existed who are having this impact on your life completely unintentionally as well, by the way, you know? And it's like, well, it sounds like absolute chaos and that you couldn't actually get people to just change the way that you're saying that they could change, you know?
Yeah.
And it's kind of makes you feel more powerless and kind of disaffected, but also, like, it gets to a stage where it's like, you're just making this up as you go. It's like,
that's it, like,
I'm just interested in this thing, and like, it's like the 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon. It's like, how do I get this thing to the thing that I'm also reading at the moment?
Well, that's it. If you have the entirety of the BBC archive at your disposal, you can sort of draw up any narrative you like. And his whole thing is that it's like not materialist. Like, he's just drawing this up, and it's supposed to be like a psychological study or a psychological narrative.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know.
It creates some pretty dubious stuff as well. Like the one that I saw that he did for Screenwipe, I believe, because Charlie Brooker surprisingly commissioned. When I think about Charlie Brooker, I think about, like, one of his Screenwipes, he was like commissioning shorts from Limmy, but he was also commissioning them from, like, Adam Curtis and Doug Stanhope, and then he made those things with Philomena Kunk. You know, I can't remember who plays her, but like he's like one of those kind of Kurt Cobain people where it's like, wow, the stuff that he likes, it's kind of interesting seeing the stuff that he likes. You end up discovering loads of amazing things. But anyhow, he made this little short, Adam Curtis, for like a Screenwipe thing. I was like, this is a short film about how people stopped being like people and everybody became like Richard Nixon, you know?
Yeah.
And so he just goes on, he talks about Richard Nixon, and then he talks about things that happened in society that made people paranoid. And he's like, and that's why they're like Richard Nixon. And you're like, you mean they're paranoid? That's how people became paranoid. It's like, it's so labored. It's like, you know.
Yeah. I like the thing when Chapo had him on, they did the cold open where they were like thinking of stuff to ask him.
Yeah.
And they were like, we should ask him all these like stupid, like shower thought type questions. And they're like, is a hot dog a sandwich?
Yeah.
And they're like, what would happen if you encased meat in it?
Yeah.
I'll do 2 more and then we can move on. Because
do you have any more though? How much are they?
I took down loads. So like,
okay, you just go through them and then we'll stop on a good one.
Okay. Ghost Estates. Do you remember them?
I do.
Nama took on the failed debts. You know, companies that went bankrupt.
I've been trying to like.
I think they sold a lot of them back to those same people. You know.
Well, yeah, it was like. Also, by the way, on a previous episode, I said that KPMG was responsible for the farm in Roscommon, but it actually wasn't. It was KBC.
Right.
So it's this thing where it's like. Just this stupid bullshit world of finance where it's like, I don't understand any of this stuff and I try very hard to, and I cannot get even a fucking scintilla or whatever the word is closer. Like just a fucking little, like the thing with NAMA that's really frustrated me is just like, so it's like, oh, they're bad debts that they can't pay back. So they sell them to the state and then the state has to, you know, reclaim some of the money on this.
I don't think they sell them to the state.
The state just acquires them?
They just sell them, as far as I understand it. This is my understanding. State bail out banks, right? As in, there were banks that were going bankrupt, and the state said, "We'll float you through this."
Yeah.
NAM was set up to buy the bad debt from like property developers and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Right? And then to try to make as much money off the debt as possible.
Yeah.
So if they bought say they wouldn't do this now, but like there's someone who bought a house for $1 million and they can't pay it, now it takes on the $1 million debt and then sells it for like
750,000 or something.
Yeah, whatever. That was my understanding of it.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of what I don't know. Like, this is it. It's just this thing that's just incredibly frustrating, and it's almost like legal robbery and gambling. Like, I mean, gambling's obviously legal here, but it's just that thing where it's like, you know, these guys go all in on red, black, whatever your thing is, you know.
Red or black.
They go all in on a full house.
What's your poison?
And they just come up trumps or the bad one, whatever it is. And then it's like, oh shit, we fucked it up. And then it's like, well, we can't go under because otherwise everybody else would be fucked. I was like, well, I guess the house is going to bail you out. And then the figures, they were like, and of course that famous guy, I don't know who was around that time, was it the Anglo-Irish Bank, where they were literally like, where'd you get that number? And he goes like, I just pulled that out of my arse. Like, they're just like, I'm just trying, just fucking anything, you know, just to keep the money going and keep the good times rolling for me and whoever. And then Nama famously obviously took those properties and then would sell them to people at like a fraction of the cost. And they would, you know, it's like, if the state owns this, can we just like, you know, two-part solve other crises that are going on? I mean, I don't know how it works.
Yeah, I don't know how it works. This book, Nama Land, that I've been meaning to read, but it's too intimidating. But
I'm going to give it a go. I'm going to read that. Give me that book. I'll read it.
Okay.
Anyway, next thing, Nama. Yeah, Nama came in. So.
Next thing, there was Troika. Remember Troika?
It
was a EU, the IMF, and the European Central Bank took over the, you know, they gave 67.5 billion to the Irish economy, but then they were like, you guys obviously can't control yourselves, so we're going to set the process for you.
Give us our pocket money type thing.
What?
Give us our pocket money. Make sure that we didn't spend it all on sweets.
Well, normally with pocket money, children can spend it however they like. That's the point. Well, you know,
moving on. No, yeah, like, I don't know. This is a part where I was pretty checked out, and I've gone back to kind of look at stuff, but I'm still not entirely 100%.
Basically, they were just like, they took, I mean, the phrase here is, we gave away our economic sovereignty to these three institutions.
Yep.
And then the last one is Pope Benedict the 16th came and gave a very, maybe he didn't come, but he gave a very bad apology to victims of sexual abuse. There's a woman arguing outside of my door, outside my window. Do you remember Pope Benedict?
Yeah, he was like the thing that I found funny about that is like, God anoints you, and then you just go, nah, I'm all right. I'm going to check out at this little bit. But apparently it was like around the time where it was revealed that he was going to be implicated in some sort of scandal, and then it went away shortly after he resigned.
Yeah, he turned it down 3 times, and then they insisted he take it. And then, I don't know, like, there's no way you can be that high in the church and not be so totally aware of all the paedophilia that goes on.
Yeah. But maybe he's like, the reason he didn't want to take it in the first place is because he's directly implicated in some of it. And then when he did take it, it's like, that story was about to break, and he's like, oh, I'm out.
No, because everyone would know. Like, when they were electing him, they were like, we've all
been there.
Like, yeah, we're all directly implicated.
Yeah.
So I think he just didn't ever want to do it.
Yeah, right.
Because, like, think about it. The previous guy is really popular. And then you're a loser, nerd. Like, do you remember he wore the thing that looked like a Santa hat around Christmas?
No, I didn't see that.
And it was like driving around and people were like, wow, he's dressed up as Santa. And he was like, actually, this is an ancient papal hat. Who is Santa?
Okay.
Do you remember that?
I didn't remember that. I remembered the weird evil-looking chair he sat in. And I remember the...
yeah, he gave such, like, good images to the people who think that the Pope is, like, the Antichrist.
Yeah.
Like, he did look like the devil.
He looked really bad. He still does, probably. What's his... God, what was the other thing that he did that was really creepy?
Molestation, probably.
Yeah. Wasn't there a thing that he was, like... I mean, this isn't his fault, necessarily, but he was in, like, the Hitler Youth Movement, so there was, like, pictures of that at the time.
Yeah. He loved it.
Yeah, that's like his version of pre-woke tweets.
Yeah, being in the Hitler Youth Movement.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways.
Giving out about Travellers in 2012.
Yeah.
That's reeling in the years.
That was reeling in the years. License
2010 or 11.
Do you like that? Can we do can we get that trending, folks? Can we?
Yeah, can we get what are we going to get trending?
We're watching Reeling in the Years and we're going to be like, hey, we watched it. We did the thing. So now share it and be like, we watched it. You know?
Yeah.
I still don't get, I still don't get the idea. Okay, here's what it'd be like. It'd be like if somebody got you like a bumper book of toilet jokes or something. Okay.
Right.
And then you sat down and read that like page 1 and then just went like, through the whole thing chronologically.
Yeah.
That's what people sitting down and watching Reeling in the Years feels like to me. It's like,
I don't understand that because to me, like, we have such an obvious analog where we'll be like watching, like, I watched the thing that was like Dark Souls lore explained and it's 45 minutes,
Yeah, but that's not on the national broadcaster. That's why I find that kind of puzzling. Like, to me, it just seems like nostalgia porn, and you just kind of have it on as ambience,
People have an interest in their own history, surely.
Yeah. I mean, the one thing that people were pointing out is that they didn't really mention the student marches here. I mean, obviously, the people will always be like, you didn't cover this, obviously, but... there are, and then they'll also be critical of the favourable coverage some gets or kind of whatever. But
they never mention women's sports.
But the people it resurfaced a bunch of footage from the time, and I do remember that was one of the points where I was like, oh, because it used to be when RTE was on and the Irish Times, I just took that as a given. That these are kind of objective news sources. Yeah. Until I was about 20, because I went to the student protests and everything was like pretty peaceful. Then as we were leaving, some like horses were flying past and I was like, okay, that's odd. And then when I got back, all of the coverage was about how the protests were incredibly violent and had gone violent, and they were showing this excessive use of the police. And they selectively chose a clip of this protester who was crying, Yeah. And there was a bit where she was crying, and they had basically taken the middle out of what she was saying, and she was saying like basically what was clear to me, what she was saying is everything was peaceful until the police came in and started battering people. Okay. Yeah. And they had kind of clipped it in such a way that it made it sound like she was denouncing the people who had gotten violent to provoke the violence from the guards.
But how did you know what she originally said?
Well, 'cause she was like mid-sentence when she was saying it. She was like, it was a peaceful protest. It was peaceful. Like, we were here and we were sitting, and then they had to go and make it like, and then they just cut away. Right. It's like, and, it was my experience anyway, just because of having being at those marches, that like the violence kicked off after I left, and the provocation was like, I don't know. I just knew that I wasn't being given the full picture because it was just not gelling with my experience of the protests whatsoever.
Yeah.
And it was the first time where I was kind of like, oh shit, like the news isn't just this objective documentation of what happened in the day. It's like somebody goes there and then puts this stuff and can spin it in whatever way they want once they get back to the studio. And that actually the press, it confused me as to why the press might have an agenda to make Leinster House look better or to make the government look better than it was.
How does this relate to Reeling in the Years?
Just the idea that like this is also a kind of thing where it's like, okay, well, here's everything that happened in 2010 or 2010, and it's like, here are the things we didn't put in, here are the things we did put in, and here is the kind of spin that we gave them, to make them. And I think, Reeling in the Years is actually kind of better than other collections of news that are on RTE, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, it definitely feels like it's harder once you give a broad picture of what's happening at the time and put the music and the people and all this type of stuff, and when you get a fuller picture, it's kind of harder to be able to spin some of this stuff,
Yeah.
But I just, even nonetheless, it does still happen, and I was only bringing that up because it was something that happened in 2010, and I thought it was relevant to the podcast of like discovering that media outlets might not be as impartial as you think they are.
Yeah.
Actually, something I meant to bring up while we were talking about Prince Philip there 2 seconds ago, there was an article that the Irish Times released called Prince Philip's Death, a timely reminder that nobody is all bad.
Yeah, that was crazy. Like, why do they say that?
I don't know. And then on Claire Byrne, they had a guy who had like a tweet that had like 2 or 3 likes, and they had him on to talk about, he's like a football coach. I think his name's Eddie O'Sullivan. And then they had Breach Smith on, and they were like to Breach Smith, like, why would you say such a callous thing about Prince Philip that, abolished them? We don't wish them condolences,
That incredibly edgy statement.
Yeah. And then she was kind of saying like, the thing, we don't support the monarchy, we don't need to do this. And I think people are pretty sick of the phone-in coverage that he's receiving, And then your man Eddie O'Sullivan, his tweet had been like, people before profit are like, they're not even human. They don't have humanity that they would, call out Prince Philip like this after his body barely cold. So they devoted a section on Claire Byrne to that, and a lot of people were outraged by it. And it does seem like really weird that the threshold for getting on RTE is like a tweet that had such minimal interaction.
Yeah. The Prince Philip death thing has really brought out the worst. Like, I thought one of these things, like, goes without saying that anyone who talks about how they're going to miss Prince Philip is reprehensible,
Yeah.
But I did really not like the PvP putting out a thing being like, we're not going to do it, we're not.
Yeah, I thought that was stupid. I mean, they did walk it back, but it's like...
It's just not going to... First of all, like, it's a bad look. And, like, it's also just not going to make people like you. You know what I mean? Because, like, there are a lot of people who think that a human dying is the most important thing, and you shouldn't try to, like, score off it.
Yeah.
I don't particularly care. I just thought it was a weird, edgy comment that was stupid.
Yeah, kind of pointless,
Yeah.
No need for it. No need for it,
No
Imagine
need.
Married 72 years, okay, to the lovely, the dignified Queen Elizabeth, and they have their beautiful sons, who and the charges have yet to be proven. Okay,
exactly.
I know he's been sought in questioning, and he refuses to talk to the FBI, but like,
so would you?
I didn't make
so
the
would
law.
I
didn't write the law.
That's it. I didn't write age consent laws.
Yeah, and if I did,
they'd look a little something. I like
that.
That
Actually way higher, huh? How about that? You have to be 22 before you can have sex, and you have to get a license for it as well.
Yeah,
prove that you can do it.
Yeah.
With me. So,
with you. Did you ever read about that? I don't know why you would, but there's a famous psychological study. They're trying to like investigate sex or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so many of the early studies were just people taking the piss, and they were just like, let's see how long it, like, let's look at orgasms. And they got a lot of participants aged between, and they'd have to have sex with each other. And they're all aged between 21 and 80 years old.
Nice.
Can you imagine, like, you're like 21, you're like, I'll sign up to that study. And then just like, the oldest woman comes through the door.
Like, you only live once.
You only live once. Yeah.
That's what I'd be like. That's what I'd be like, totally.
Yeah.
I would totally sign up for something like that as well. That's the type of person I am.
Imagine the type of 80-year-old woman who's signing up to that study as well. Like,
that's why, like,
you can imagine the randy old man. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, he's not nice, but he's randy. Whereas a randy old woman?
Think about it.
Think about it.
Yeah.
That was my point.
I got a bunch of sorry. We talked about KPMG, KBC very briefly. I touched on it for like 2 seconds, okay?
Yeah.
Because I was just in reference to NAMA and all these acronyms that make your life miserable, and it's like I don't even know. You know, I was trying to defend myself from making such a freaking boo-boo by getting the banks wrong.
I noticed that, and I was, cringe.
Yeah. But an article was released yesterday on the journal.ie.
Another acronym.
Yeah, it stands for... Go for it.
Well, the J stands for journal. I'm
talking about... What is the T? You're missing out the T, the most important part of the...
Yeah. T stands for spill the tea, Gareth, about this article you read.
Stands for spill the tea, so it's the middle... It's like the last word of a sentence is the first letter of that.
Just spill the tea. Come on, Gareth, just spill the tea. Put me out of my misery.
And then the H is...
Hey, Gareth, spill the tea.
And E is...
the T.
And J?
The J stands for just come on. Let's spill the
That stands for Jesus Christ. The O stands for...
Oh,
Holy Father who art in heaven.
Yeah. Yeah.
And U stands for...
you and Jesus, partners
in,
Yeah.
R stands for...
It stands for...
Righteous.
Like record scratch.
Yeah. The T. It stands for record scratch, the T.
The T.
N stands for... No, seriously, though, the T. And A stands for all to him.
All to God.
All to God. And L stands for look,
live, laugh, love.
God is the T.
Yeah. Listen, you. God is the T.
So that all together is... No. That's but just because the men, the headline reads, "Men jailed over failure to stay away from Roscommon Farm seek release from prison." So I didn't realize, but the people on the Roscommon Farm from 2018 that resulted in that controversial eviction, a lot of them have been in jail. You know
what?
Yeah. I didn't realize this. And so some of them are just getting released, and some of them are seeking to get released.
Imagine wanting to go back to Roscommon so badly, of all places, that you get arrested.
Well, to go into their property, which they say is like their own. You couldn't
pay me to go to Roscommon.
But they were found in contempt of court, and basically you just required them to like apologize to the court, and then some of them would either get lenient sentences or be released, and they were just kind of trying to fight to hold on to this kind of land that they believe that they're entitled to, and it's theirs. And KBC are like, oh well, no, it's ours. And what was the one that I was reading that I thought was like just so fucking harsh? Following a consultation between the men and their lawyers, the court heard that the two men were prepared to give undertakings to stay away from, not trespass, and not interfere with the farm if KBC were prepared to give a similar undertaking. In reply, Rosanne Fanning, SC for KBC, said such a demand was complete nonsense, adding that what the applicants were doing was an attempt to reopen a case that had already been decided. And I don't know, it's just like this thing, it's like, call me soft, man, but seeing a clip of these 65-year-old guys being torn away from a farm and then just being like, just give me my fucking farm, and then this banker and you're just going like, no, and it's complete nonsense, and throw him back in jail. I don't know.
And like, to draw a comparison to the Debenhams thing,
Yes. Yeah.
where you have like Debenhams workers striking for redundancy pay, they're in a similar situation where because of level 5, there's this supposed truce between them and the repossession firm.
Yeah.
I can't remember exactly who it is. It's KBC? KBG?
KPMG.
KPMG. And like, it just goes to show how it works, because there was a mediation. It was like, neither side will, the workers don't have to strike, and the repossession company promises not to take back the stuff until level 5 is over. They won't try to enter the property until level 5 is over.
Yeah.
And then they just have. Like, what's more is the guards have been helping them access it.
And aiding them, yeah.
So, like, it's always this thing of whenever there's a truce, the little guy is going to be punished for breaking it. And then the guy with all the money, like, it's such a basic point, but they're not. They're helped by the state, or they're not punished by the state.
Yeah.
Like, same, we were talking last time about the eviction up in Phibsborough.
Yeah.
Do you remember that one?
Yeah.
And I have a thread by Katu, and they said, I don't know, I think it's all, like, this is what they're saying, I don't know for sure if it's true, but they were saying that the landlord had previously been found. Have you seen this thread?
Yeah, no, I think it's just the most harrowing thing. Yeah, read that bit out, yeah.
It was that in 2019, the same landlord did an illegal eviction from the same property.
Yeah.
And a few months later, the RTB, what is that? The rental tenants.
Rights and rental tenants. Yeah.
Something to do with landlords and tenants. They ordered him to pay damages to the previous tenants of the property, who was made homeless along with their children. And their point was like, this guy is obviously known as someone who illegally evicts people.
Yeah.
Yet the guards still sided with him. And like, people heard the guards say to the evicted people that they were ignorant of the law.
Yeah.
But then they heard them discussing with the landlord how to properly evict people. So like, again, it's this case where, like, if you have property or if you have capital, like, the government's going to be on your side. Yeah. And that's what's going to happen with those people in Roscommon.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like, I mean, one of them is still in jail, you know? Yeah. I mean, it's I think it's just grim. It's just so fucking grim. We're going back to, like, literally Punch magazine illustrations of just the landlord being this fucking crocodile that's surrounding the whole city, you know?
Yeah, that's
like,
it.
Was that Punch? No, it sounds like Punch, doesn't it? But you know what I mean? It's like, it's just old-fashioned, like, we almost put a kind of acceptable veneer on money-grubbing assholes, like some of the worst people you could possibly, you know.
Like, Irish history is a series of just cruel landlords.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, the English were cruel, the pig farmers were cruel. Now it's just like the general landlords are cruel.
I wonder, there's this one here, just real quick. I'm kind of a bit tongue-in-cheek when I say this. Tongue firmly in my cheek.
Yeah.
Once I pull this up. Yeah. Cork man burned down rental home after eviction threat. Okay.
Good for him.
So on the Irish Examiner.
Good for him.
No, because I was like, okay, I'm going to read this first before I say good for him. And then I retweeted it going, there goes my hero.
What is it?
But he's basically a guy, he's like, so they were like, he's getting kicked out. So his friend gave him the house in 2016.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
This guy had attempted suicide. Okay.
Which guy?
The tenant. Okay.
Right.
And now the guy was saying like, oh yeah, he's got a history of like mental health problems, and also he's got drug abuse issues. And I was like, oh okay, so like heroin, or he smoked a bit of weed.
Really?
He was getting him kicked out for fucking smoking weed. And so the guy was like, if you kick me out, I'm gonna burn down the fucking house.
Yes.
You know. And the guy was like, yeah, I didn't believe him, you know.
Right.
And so then what he did is he rang up all of the neighbors and told them, I'm going to be setting a fire at this house, and please do not be there at this time. And then he burned it, just burned to the ground.
That's amazing.
And the article is just like the judge giving out to him, saying like, you know, like, what was it? But basically, the judge was kind of making the point, like, well, it seems like all the services have failed you because, you know, you obviously have mental health issues and you weren't being catered to. And like now the fact you're getting kicked out of this by like your friend, you know. So, but yeah, he was still, I'm trying to find the one that he said. Yeah, he just kind of, he still at the end of the day was like, that's no reason to burn it was like, you know, Joe Biden in response to, oh, that's an awful thing that happened to you, but there's no excuse to damage property.
That's it. There's no reason to react, you know?
Yeah. Just let us roll over you like a fucking steamroller.
Yeah.
Let this happen, you know?
Yeah. No, that guy rules for doing that.
Yeah, I know. I was like, I'm kind of, so we're kind of, I have to jump off at a certain point, but but there's so many fucking things. There's the depressing thing, one that we didn't get a chance to talk about on last week's podcast, and I mentioned it very briefly at the end when I went back and recorded some sort of explainer as to why the episode was separated. I don't know if you saw that was a family members among TDs and so this was launched quickly on the heels of TDs paying themselves for travel expenses even though they hadn't travelled, just any bit of money that they could rinse out of people.
Yeah,
it was kind of like, yeah, no, I'm annoyed, but it's like I knew you would do that, so I don't really care.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah,
and then it's like family members among TDs and senators who got 674k spent on special allowance. So I guess the special allowance is for like consultancy and stuff like this. But within this consultancy, then the one thing that people were finding out, among the payments since the last election, this is from the Independent, among the payments since the last election were €6,154 to writer and actress Stephanie Preisner for public relations advice for Minister of State Anne Rabbitte. So a Fianna Fáiler, no less. She's really... So, like, but it turns out that her husband also works for Anne Rabbitte. So technically he was just like, all right, can we throw a bit of money to Stephanie? And she's like, it was on my website. It was no secret. I just didn't make a big deal about it. And then you're just like, you also, like, as Claire O'Connor, I believe her name is, I could have it wrong. Sorry about that. If it is, I'll look up just to make sure I'm not getting the name wrong. But she was the one basically on Twitter at the time, late last year with the mother and baby homes, when Stephanie Preisner was using her platform and Instagram Live, like, guys, don't worry, listen, it's not what it looks like, it's actually the Attorney General told him, so, like, kind of calm down maybe, you know, like, she's very public about all of, she somehow,
well, like, her whole brand is, like, I didn't really see the big deal about this, and then someone made the point that it's like, her whole brand is like, I'm neutral, you know, like,
yes, exactly.
I have no vested interest, completely neutral. I'm just this curious person who wants to explain, who wants to understand the world. It's like, I didn't know her husband worked for Anne Rabbitte.
Yeah, yeah. And it just, or a fiance or something. I think.
It just led to this whole thing where, like, I always thought the mother and baby homes explaining away the situation, I thought that was just her natural inclination towards like centrism. But like, if your husband works for Anne Rabbitte, if you're like, have a vested interest in the government, like, it's just so
shameless. I mean,
shameless is the word. Like,
but like, she, you know, we watched her little show, a little bit of it, where she's like, oh, how do I get a mortgage? How do I do this? And, you know, at the time, I was kind of suspect about whether she was struggling, really. I mean, maybe she is struggling, but like, at the same time, it's like, she really does cozy up to the worst elements of our government and society, and also credulously as well. Yeah. Like, she'll have on Pascal Donahue, and like, I mentioned it when we were reviewing her podcast, which you can get on patreon.com.
Yeah, she was like,
Celtic
you're
Ligers.
The only man that I would leave my husband for. It's like,
no, but
we drew up these cards, like, they're called cheat cards.
But she was like, she kind of, you know, she has these people on, like the worst people, Stephen Donnelly, Micheál Martin, Pascal Donahue, and Neil Richmond, and the effect of having them on the podcast is to sort of humanize them. Like, we talk about the important issues, but then we talk about Sabrina the Teenage Witch and which Spice Girl they think they are. Do you know? And it's like having Maria Walsh on as well, and it's like, it's a laundering thing for these fucking awful politicians. But when she had Mary Lou on, like, But basically, Mary Lou was saying, like, what we need to do is we need to invest in this type of stuff, social housing and this, that, there, and the other. And then she goes, like, oh, but the money's not there, like, you know, like, where's she's one of these people who's like the magic money tree because she talked to Pascal Donoghue on the last one, you know?
Yeah.
And it's just so frustrating how she kind of gets this kind of, like this reputation as a young person or some sort of voice of a generation. And it's like and also I didn't realize this as well, but my mum had to tell me this. She's on like Brendan O'Connor and RTE radio like every other night as a kind of impartial pundit as well, and does not make it clear about her leanings.
Incredible.
Yeah. And now she's kind of like, oh yeah, but everybody knew. And it's like, one of the ones that I really distinctly remember is some 19-year-old going like, I like literally used to watch the stuff and believe what you were saying. Do you know, like, I don't know like how true it is, but this woman was saying like, it's not nothing to go up there and pontificate on these things and espouse these things like, lads, calm down. Actually, the government's not all that bad. And then when I went onto her page to see, like, had she commented on this again, you know, had she mentioned it besides talking to the papers and come clean about it. And she was like, she had just recently shared a thing going R.I.P. Prince Philip, like retweeted a thing about like, just do your fucking head in. God, there's a bunch more to talk about, but unfortunately I gotta like wrap it up. I think that like one of the last things I want to send out on, just because while we're talking
let's do
about,
one more. Sure, I can always thank the patrons solo.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, cool.
So let's push it to the wire.
Push it to the absolute limit. But the one that I
live wire.
The image that I sent you. Hear that?
Yeah,
that's the freaking live wire.
That's the freaking live wire. Wow.
Yeah.
I wish we had reaction noises.
Yeah, well, sometimes I go back and I put stuff in, but I don't.
Do you?
Less so these days because TD's paying themselves. But then the next thing that I had was I just have a section from The Independent I sent you, which I don't know the title of the article even, but somebody put up, after the call, Mr. Martin returned to the room and told his ministers he had, quote, some very good news, but he did not want to tell them in case it leaked. However, Taoiseach Leo Varadkar interjected to tell him the news about the additional supply was already in the public domain, and Mr. Martin confirmed the vaccine boost to his cabinet.
Yeah, that's so... like, Micheál Martin's already so depressing. And like...
such a bitch.
Just... you can tell he walked in, he was happy, and then Leo Varadkar just was like, you know.
Oh yeah, I know already. Like, it's like, and it's just no illusion anymore. It's like, you know, I thought I would be pissed off when like Varadkar can't be Taoiseach again. After all this shit, he can't be Taoiseach again. And it was like, well, he's still Taoiseach. He's still out there all the time saying all the good news stories. Yeah. You know, it's like that Ardal O'Hanlon joke that I quoted there last week, where the sports guy and the main news primetime guy have like this relationship where it's like, and we hand it over to John with the sports news, and I hear Arsenal one, it's like, that was my news. I've been waiting all day. He's like this person who's like, well, the Taoiseach stepped out a minute before Micheál Martin and said that actually everybody's going to be vaccinated by tomorrow. And then Micheál Martin stands out there with a fucking dick in his hand, and it's like, do you not have any respect for yourself? Yeah. Like any fucking thing for yourself.
Get that dick out of your hand, you know?
Yeah. And he just is kind of like, instead people are like, you know, when Gav Riley was, who's, you know, had a tweet this week that made me fucking want to die. But anyway,
what did he say?
That's for another time. Oh, he was talking about how like people are talking about borrowing with low interest rates, but actually, if you'll find that paying these back and the exchequer, and you're just like, shut the fuck up. You know, it's one of these things where it's like all of these rules that, again, the one-sided rules we're talking about that only ever apply to people who want other stuff like infrastructure and change, and, you know, all this housing and stuff like that. It's like, well, actually that's impossible, but I can award myself a bunch of money or pay my wife fucking $100,000 to update my Facebook page every week, you know? It's like just insane.
Yeah.
I mean, but anyhow, Gav Riley was to so this is the guy we're talking about. Remember when he said well, the Taoiseach said something completely different to what you said, and then Micheál Martin's like, no, he didn't. And he was like, well, actually he did. And he was like, and it's creating confusion. Listen, you know, I don't want to, you know, you've had your time now and your agenda and the thing that you're trying to spin. And he tried to move on, and it's like it's not even, he can't even just go like, well, me and the Taoiseach talked before and there was miscommunication, there was cross wires. It's like, actually, no, this is really great. And actually, no, like, I'm the Taoiseach, I'm doing really well. And actually everything, because the other, and sorry, I know I'm yammering, but the other thing is he appeared on Virgin Media tonight, last night, and these were the tweets that Gav Riley then put out.
So who was on what? Who was on Virgin
Micheál
Media?
Martin was on with Matt Cooper, and he was saying some of this stuff where you're just like, they in Leinster House, they believe that there's going to be a vaccine boost, as in like they're going to benefit like Johnson and all these
Yes,
people
I've
have.
heard this, and it's sorry, go on. But like,
No, but no, that's-
it's
no, that's
delusional.
it.
It's so delusional. Like it's
Well, listen to these quotes. I'm sorry,
Right.
but listen to these, okay? We will now look forward with some level of confidence. We have to remain vigilant. So far, so good. Taoiseach says the EU is preparing for further rounds of booster doses. Yeah, blah, yeah. He would be perfectly happy to receive. Yeah, so here's the one that he said. Taoiseach doesn't believe opinion polls putting Fianna Fáil at 11%. And quote, in the name of God, look at the opinion polls before the general election. Matt Cooper, you're saying the polls are wrong. And he goes, yes.
clearly like if there's a vaccine boost,
Yeah.
I would genuinely believe there's mind control chemicals in the vaccine. Like,
No, I'm going to join the anti-maskers. I'm like, yeah, maybe actually it is cutting oxygen off to people's brains and
Yeah,
making them
that's it.
hallucinate. You know?
Yeah, it gives me migraines and
Yeah.
you know, makes me do crazy things.
Like, no, what'll happen is there will be a vaccine boost, but for Fine Gael, they'll
Yeah.
just get it. Because, like,
Yeah.
nobody... One of the things that... This might be reaching way further back, but
Go for
Golfgate, Phil Hogan...
Yeah.
I believe if you asked somebody on the street what party Phil Hogan was in, they would say Fianna Fáil. Because he
yeah, we said that at the time. We were
Yeah,
so
like-
surprised he was Fine Gael.
like, there's so many people who... Like, Simon Harris is out there in his role as Minister for Third Level
We need to
Education or
look at
whatever.
TikTok. We need to look at his TikTok.
Yeah,
For the
yeah,
next.
like he's out there, and I mean, it all. Now I feel like I have my fucking corkboard out where we're looking at Stephanie Preisner, Simon Harris's TikTok, all of these guys trying to talk about fucking Tamagotchis, and then like just you know, like it's all a conspiracy.
But there's no corkboard. Like it's all strategy.
Yeah, no, it is, and it's so cynical and awful and dumb. But like the thing about with Micheál Martin, what am I talking about? Yeah, Leo Varadkar going out there.
Yeah.
Taoiseach, when they call him the Taoiseach, which is actually rare, most of the time they just say Leo Varadkar comes out and says this. Most of the people, you could conceivably ask somebody in the middle of the country who's Taoiseach now, middle of the country, whatever, that's a stereotype,
no,
but you know, like
those stupid idiots, those
just in a
bumpkins.
remote area of the country where they'd be like, who's Taoiseach now? I was like, I don't know, is this still Leo Varadkar, you know, or something? I'm not, you know,
Yeah.
like, and you wouldn't be wrong for thinking that, because he takes all the good news, he gets all the good vibes, he talks like he's still leader of this pandemic thing, and he has his cake and eats it as well, because no matter what he does, he goes out there and says the exact opposite, and it's like it never fucking happened.
Yeah.
Like talking about mandatory hotel quarantine, oh, we can't do that, and then it happens, oh, we have to do that, and it's like it's bizarre, like how Fine Gael are like rising in the polls because of just this. It's the same thing that happened. Like, I'm sorry, I'm doing this, but like with Joe Biden and Barack Obama, the residual of Obama like rubbed off and got him over the finish line in a moment of crisis.
Who's Biden in this analogy?
Well, it's Biden is an abstract concept in this analogy, which is
who's Obama?
Obama is the first COVID response, and Leo Varadkar is this unlikable politician who just benefits from the warm memories of, like, remember when we got through this the first time and then the bad guys took over and fucked everything up, and it's like,
so Varadkar is Biden.
Yes, as in
It's more like this.
Okay.
Like, do you remember how popular Bernie Ahern was?
Yeah.
And then, like, he kept trying to take credit for the Celtic Tiger.
Yeah.
It's sort of like that, where like anyone, like every leader in the world got more popular during the first stage of the pandemic. Like Trump got more popular, Boris Johnson got more popular. Everywhere the party in government became more popular.
Yeah.
And it's just like during the Celtic Tiger, if you're suddenly rich, you're going to like the government more.
Yeah.
So, like, but ultimately they had very little to do with it.
Exactly. You're talking about a moment across the world. It's like, this is into history times where people were like, the good times are going to go on forever. Everything's gravy, you know? And then this guy just goes, yeah, that was me.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, exactly. It's like, but it's different then with Radker, because Radker came in and it was almost like he's heading out the door, so he engages a bunch of policies that normally he wouldn't have done, you know, and he gets to say it's unprecedented times. And then he's basically in government again and refuses to do those same policies again, because either he believes like, oh, well, I'm going to inherit this again, so I don't want to.
What is he refusing to do again?
Well, I guess just his attitude towards certain things. Like, you know, there was an immediate, like, there was a speed and urgency with things when they were done, you know, like as in eviction ban, you know, the PUP increase, and what am I talking about? Oh yeah, well, like just the restrictions.
Know, like,
okay, maybe I'm wrong. Yeah,
yeah.
I'm wrong.
I think everything else is good.
Yeah. You know, you can't win it all. Sometimes the argument just peters out. But if somebody has things that they're not doing that they were doing in the first lockdown, then
please email Gareth.
But he just kind of, you know, he just kind of, you know, the feature film presentation of the pandemic, Alan Radker in the first round, was successful to the point that the residual glow of that is still felt. People associate all of the failings from this lockdown or the series of lockdowns that have happened, even while he's been in government. They still, even while Radker has been in government, they still associate it with Micheál Martin. And any opportunity that Micheál Martin has to dispel that, he just can't do it. He's just constantly outmaneuvered by somebody who I think is one of the most shameless and boring politicians. Like, Radker is just like, I think the thing that offends me so much is how little he has to try, you know, to do things.
Yeah.
He just goes like, he'll go on and say, oh, well, Neffet don't understand what it's like to have a small business and we need to open up right away. 2 weeks later, walk that back and go, well, actually, I think no apologies are necessary and actually Neffet are wrong. And it's like, just playing politics on easy mode constantly with some people who just never pressure him, who allow him to get away with leaking confidential documents, contradicting himself every other day, and then having one thing to say about, like, you know, oh, looking after people. He had this recent quote about fucking, oh, I do things, I don't just virtue signal, and how he's taking care of, like, the working man and trying to raise the minimum wage. Well, then there's documentation of him writing to the EU to say, no, we don't need to raise the minimum wage here, and actively campaigning against it. His welfare cheats thing, it's like, just how is this? How can you do that? How can a man be filled with so many contradictions and you have a press that is, like, just does not have, like, they just have no self-respect. They're like Micheál Martin. It's like that they can't apply pressure to that at all. It's like, does it not get to a point where that's too tempting? It's like, I know he gives you scoops, but do you not feel like, fuck it, man, you're the story. I'm gonna make something out of this.
No,
you know?
It's the Chad Radker versus the, you know, virgin Micheál Martin.
Unbelievable. Anyway, look, we did make it down very much to the wire because I have 3 minutes before I have to get off this phone call. But that's that. There's more to come on the bonus episode, which you can find on patreon.com/Celtic Ligers for a mere $5 a month.
Yeah.
And you get an extra episode. And you get actually, like, quite a lot for your money, but not too much. It would be annoying.
Yeah.
Like, we're going to be doing our Month of Fools.
Yes.
We're going to be keeping that going. Even though I think it's an incredibly... I'm committing to it. We're going to see it through.
Yeah.
But I am wondering why the fuck we did it. Why I thought it was an idea.
Yeah, it's a good idea. Well, it's a bit of fun.
Yeah, and also I'll correct the record on the things that I said wrong about the creation of the Joker.
Oh yeah, Rob was furious
mostly
at you about something you said about Stan Lee.
Oh really?
That's interesting. I'll read them out to you on the Patreon.
Oh yeah, cool. I can't wait. But like Stan Lee, like I can't wait. Look, I don't know what he's going to say. I'm looking forward to it. I'm always happy to receive any correspondence, especially negative if I'm honest. Because those are the ones that I never stop thinking about. The fucking blind boy, if he listened to Come Town once. Fuck off.
I know. It's going to be with me to my death. All right.
Okay.
And I'm going to thank the patrons.
You thank the patrons, and I'll see you later.
What should the theme be?
Shakespeare.
Okay.
You can come up with a theme, but that's the one that I put forward.
Right. Okay.
All right, bye-bye.
See you later. Okay. Now it's just the rest of us all together. And it's just down to me to thank the patrons. I have my list here. And I don't know, I can't remember what the theme was that Garrett selected, but looking around my room, the theme is, good vibes. So I've curated my room to be, pleasant to be in. Nervous now? Okay, Rachel Deckard. Garrett said that you're named after Blade Runner. That's good vibes. I don't like the good vibes thing. Let's just say a bit of fun. Because my room's a bit of fun. I have a book here opposite me. It's called Jeff Bezos' Pub. But Jeff Bezos being the devil. Rachel Deckard. That's a bit of fun. Podcast Naren. That's not your real name. But we thank you for being here. Podcasts are a bit of fun, but Ireland isn't. Ireland is probably the most miserable. I went through a phase where I thought I'd like Ireland, but now I realise. No, the theme is Shakespeare. I'm going to stick to it, like Garrett said. Rachel Deckard. Pray tell, Deckard. Deckard from Blade Runner. Podcast Inherent. Shakespeare's like, I don't know what any of that means. Podcast. I know I made up several hundred, if not 1,000 words during my career. I didn't make that one up. It's just technology wasn't there. And Aaron. Maybe he'd heard that one. Aaron, maybe he travelled to an Irish-speaking part. Like, I know Grace O'Malley, didn't she meet Queen Elizabeth? And then they spoke in Latin. She refused to speak English, and the Queen refused to speak Irish. Don't even know if the Queen spoke Irish. Ian Lynham. What about Glean Insight? Of the modern condition. No, not of the of the human condition. Mickey Finn. Mikey Finn. I imagine there's, the Porter scene of Macbeth. There's probably some anti-Irish sentiment in that. And the guy was called Mikey Finn, and he was an Irish guy. Have you seen Macbeth? It's like, at a moment of high tension, there's a Porter scene. For no reason. And the guy goes in and just farts for a while. And I don't know why. Joanne Heffernan. Wish Gareth was here. Joanne. Go and Heffernan. Go on. Oh my god. What's her name? What's Shakespeare's wife's name? Gonna look it up. This could be very good. Shakespeare's wife. Amy Hooverman. Anne Hathaway. Joanne Hathaway. Heffernan Hathaway. Benson. Ben, son, let me tell you about William Shakespeare. Ben was the name of my dog, so maybe it should be Ben, son, my dog. Francis Breen. Francis seen from England. Simon Akers. Simon Akers. Shylock. Sly Man. Shylock. Slyman Shylock. I remember in school someone was like, we were going through Macbeth, and then the teacher said, you know, like, people weren't too fond of the Jews in this period of time. Shylock's supposed to be quite unlikable. And then later on in the year, someone was like, the question was like, why is Shylock? Or like, talk about why Shylock is the villain of the piece. And then someone's only answer was, Shylock's a villain because he's Jewish. Mark Stokes. Mark Stoke-on-Trent, which is near Stratford-upon-Avon, I believe, which is where your man was born. Mark Maloney. Mark my money. Mark my loan. Eh? The loan being a pound of flesh. That's what the Merchant of Shakespeare was about. Blóhin de Burka. Much Ado About Nothing by William Shakespeare. Here's a fact that nothing was slang for a woman's Adam and Eve area. So the title was a double entendre because there was not much ado about nothing and then much ado about nothing, like the, you know, vagina and labia, all that sort of stuff. Alan Carroll, sing me a carol about Shakespeare. That's not so good. Alan, a man can. American Carol. Rob Gale. What about let me think. Shakespeare. He used a pen, a plume to write. A chicken. Rob Gale. Knob of a male. You know? You can imagine that. They'd be like, get that male knob out of my face, you know? Stephen Bradley. Stephen Bawdy. Just like the porter scene from Macbeth, or maybe like the crowds at the Punch and Judy show just down the road. All the refined kings and queens went to the Punch and Judy show, and the poor peasants went to Shakespeare. Alison Spittle. Anne Hathaway. What about Maleficent and Brittle? Like Macbeth's psychology, like the marriage between Macbeth and Lady Macbeth, or like Shylock's grasp of lending law or contract law. It was Maleficent and it was Brittle, in that it was easily broken, the contract. Because if you remember at the end, the whole thing hinges upon that your man had promised him a pound of blood, but there's no way he could take the blood without, you know, spilling flesh. And if I really, like, I don't really understand why that was Shylock's problem. Like, if I went to the bank and I was like, actually, you can't take this money that I owe you because you might get some dust from my trousers. And if you do that, you'll get hanged. And then they say, well, you give us the money, make sure there's no dust on it. You know, if I was Shylock, I would have been like, just give me the flesh, but make sure there's no blood. Or maybe we come to a conclusion about, like, blood is worth a certain amount of flesh, so, like, you just don't have to give me so much flesh because so much blood. Don't even know what he wanted the thing for. Richard Zimmerman. Richard the Third. Man. Bridget Purcell. Bridge over the river. Bridget. Bridget. Oh, so. Group. Frigid. Morsel. Which is what maybe trying to think. Oh, what's his name? Malfolio. When he was in prison. Milky Fox. Shakespeare and the Legend of the Milky Fox. His last and greatest play. Kyle O'Neill, King of the Fealty. Kyle O'Neill. Well, I'm pretty sure that's what Macbeth does in front of King Duncan. He's like, Kyle and Neil. Kyle Duncan and Neil. Now to Neil. Connor Barry. Connor Barry. You know, thrust and parry. Basics of swordplay. Sword combat. Which, you know, is an integral part of, even a lot of the early ones would have probably put a lot more emphasis on the fighting scenes. Now they sort of phone it in. It's just some guy gets stabbed, you know, between his arm and his torso. That's where the sword goes. He pretends to die, and everyone's like, oh, that sucks, you know? Back in the day, they really went for it. Liam McCartan. Duncan's Tartan. That's a good one. Clara Newlawn. Wary. Claire. Nair. Bear. And Cruel. Cruel. One. Bear and Cruel one. Let me think what that means. That means it refers to maybe the Queen out of the 12th Night. And now you have to watch it to get it, but it's very much the case that that is accurate. Niall McGillicuddy. Neil, my king. You fool. Not Neil before the king, you fool. And he's talking to the fool of the porter scene. Ryan Carey. Do be wary. And I'm pretty sure that's what someone warned. Sorry, been sitting for a while. Julius Caesar. You know, be wary of the Ides of March. Niamh Kelly. Um, Neve Kelly on the telly. Some people, you know, in the 80s, I think they were actually supposed to be kind of good. No, it's not in the 80s, but recently David Tennant was in one of them, and they made a series of TV plays. Some of the Shakespeare plays did it quite good. Paulie Doyle. What does the witches say at the start of Macbeth? I mean, you can tell I did Macbeth for the leavings. Toil and trouble. Poorly toil and trouble. Cauldron something. And the other thing. Those ones were mad. They had an eye and a tongue and an ear. Just between the three of them. Joe Joyce. And I hate to do this, you know, but it's Duncan's Macbeth's choice. Or it's, you know, Julius Caesar's choice. Or it's Shylock, I guess, didn't really have a choice. I mean, he made a choice to enter into the profession, but he was sort of caught in the end. I mean, Twelfth Night, can't really remember it. I haven't watched any of the historical ones. Oh, what's the really famous? Hamlet. Hamlet made a choice to avenge his father. Hamlet's choice. There you go.